Hello everyone, this is Locko S, and welcome back to Star Citizen Alpha 23.1 for Invictus Launch Week, otherwise known as Fleet Week. And Invictus is basically the Memorial Day holiday of Star Citizen, where they celebrate the military a whole bit. They recognize veterans. It's also in the in-game lore. The holiday, or not really the holiday, but the day where they start collecting all of the various people from around the verse who want to sign up for the military, and they gather them all up on this day, or on this week. They gather them all up, and then they start shipping them out to the actual training camp. So basically, it's collecting the recruits and sending them off, and then also the graduating class graduates around this time of year. So then after they graduate, they start in the military. So this is also the graduation for the previous class of recruits. So, what is here for all the players, however, is for the Invictus Fleet launch week. They have basically a big in-game convention where every 2 days, a new ship manufacturer or set of manufacturers takes over the convention hall, and you can explore their basically their military ship options. So, for instance, today and tomorrow is going to be RSI, Consolidated Outland, Origin, and Argo Astronautics. And you'll be able to walk around and see their logistics, support, and most importantly, military vehicles. So that's going to be happening in-game. You can also go over to those ships and you can rent them for free. And it's highly recommended that you rent any ships that you're interested in for free, because on real life, on the internet, on the web store, there is a whole lot of ships for sale that you'll be able to buy with real money. And that is going to be what this video is mostly going to focus on, is covering all that stuff with a little bit of the in-game stuff to keep in mind. So the number one thing you absolutely need to know for your top tip for Invictus is the fact that you do not want to buy a large ship in-game if you do not have the people to crew it with, or you don't expect to have the physical, actual people to crew it. You're going to be relying on AI. The fact is that AI crew members are not planned for anywhere in the near future. They have not talked about them. They have not mentioned them. And in general, a player crew will routinely beat an AI crew. You don't want to necessarily rely on having AI crew members. So keep that in mind. Now, the other thing is also that those ships tend to be a lot of money, and you do not want to, as a beginner player, be stuck with a ship that costs a lot of money that you are also not able to fully crew or utilize because you're just a single player running around. If you really want to enjoy those ships, your best bet is to either join an org or just keep on looking for people in chat and various social media platforms like Reddit, RSI Spectrum, and even the in-game chat for people who need crew for their ships. There's always a bunch of us whales who need crew and are looking for crew, so your best bet really is to actually just hook up with them, and then you'll probably at least be able to be easily the third or second crew member on the ship, if not the only other crew member on the ship, just because a lot of these bigger ships need a ton of people to crew, and you'll actually be able to pick your role more. You have more options to pick your role. If you're flying by yourself, you'd have to be the pilot, because otherwise the ship wouldn't go anywhere. So keep that in mind, that with the larger ships, they're not necessarily they're not great value necessarily for their money, mainly because you have to also consider the fact that a lot of their ships you need other people to play them with, and if you just solo them, it's not nearly as fun, and you're not getting the full potential out of those ships. So save your money, don't buy any larger ships. That's one big thing to note. Second big thing to note is you can also earn all these ships in-game. So that's another reason why you don't necessarily want to spend a lot of money on ships in-game or on the web store to buy in-game ships, because you can actually earn these ships in-game. And not only that, having the ability to actually earning the ships in-game allows you to have a goal to set for yourself in the game. if you buy up all the ships that, if you buy up like the top tier combat ship, yes, you're going to have a top tier combat ship to start the game with, but then you're also not going to have any goals with it. You're not going to have any financial goals for that ship. You can buy another combat ship, like for instance, if you buy like the top tier fighter, you can then save up to start buying a top tier bomber ship. But problem is that you already you've already filled up like the top tier of like one branch. So keep that in mind. Other notes for tips, do keep in mind that with a lot of a lot of the ships, like you really only need a starter ship. So make sure you keep that in mind. Like you don't want to get anything too advanced. There's a bunch of like starter ships that CIG has picked out, and you generally want to stick to ships that are sub $100. So keep in mind that like if you already have a starter package, buying an extra ship that's in like the $100 to at most $150 range might not be a bad idea to have a secondary ship. Gets a little, I will say, after you start buying your second and third ship, it's not that worthwhile. Your best bet at that point, after buying like a second and third ship, is to save the money and keep it for hardware upgrades. Because Star Citizen is definitely a power and resource hungry game, so it's much better in my mind to once you have like a decent selection of ships, like 2 or 3, just start saving up for computer parts because you're gonna need them. So that's my top 3 tips for buying ships. Again, don't buy a large ship. Don't buy too large of a ship because you need because you're gonna have to consider the crew, and don't get anything too high end, even for like the single seat ships, because you want something to work towards. And really, when it comes to starter ships, and actually the number of ships, once you have your starter package, you don't really need to buy extra ships per se. But it's not a bad idea if you really are invested in the game and you've really played it to go for a second or third ship. Just to have a small stable of ships, because then that way you can swap out roles, and if your other ship dies, you'll at least have another ship to play with. Now for the in-game tips for Invictus, I'm going to get up and go into first person view. And you'll note that while I was here getting the recording set up, that my hunger and thirst went down. I will show you a place inside Invictus to actually grab some food and drink, because you want to keep an eye on your thirst and hunger, because it will creep up on you, and you can dehydrate and die in the convention center. It's just like the real life cons. If you've ever been to a real life anime con or anything like that, you do want to make sure that you stay hydrated and fed. Now, another quick tip for in-game is that new, I believe, to this year, Tumbril actually has a shirt and hat. So I'm going to go ahead and pick one up for myself. So this is cool. So especially if you like a manufacturer. Tip number 2 is just come to the convention center and make sure you pick up a couple of copies of your favorite manufacturer shirts. I have seen the manufacturer's shirts appear in-game in like space stations and the like, but it's a little bit hard sometimes to track them down. And tip number 3 is, if you need to know what the schedule is, it's on both the IRL website, but also here. As well as also right there. Run over here, and there we go. So, screenshot this, keep this in mind, go to the Robinson Space Industries website, look that up. So again, every 2 days, you have a haul, and on the 3rd day, it switches up to another haul to run for another 2 days. So your well, your first two hull sets are going to be kind of like more smaller manufacturers for the military, anyways. So today and tomorrow, May 17th and 18th, it's RSI, Origin, Argo, and Consolidated Outland. May 19th to 20th, Misk, Mirai, Crusader, and Tumbril. And then in the middle of next week, we have Aegis Dynamics taking up a whole show floor, and Aerospace taking up a whole show floor. And then, if you've noticed, there's a couple of days missing, the 25th and the 26th. The 25th and the 26th is a separate quote-unquote convention called DefenseCon, and that's run by Drake, and it's in an entirely different location. That's, I believe, usually held over by the spaceport, and I will be making a video on that later when that comes into effect. And then we also have the last couple of days, May 27th through the 29th, and that is the finale, where they have a couple of things on display. For the finale, they don't usually have a lot on display, but they do have a couple of things. Now, as I was mentioning, up in the show floor, they have these little coffee stands, and you can buy for relatively cheap. Thankfully, they don't do like real life conventions do and inflate the price. Some food and drink. So keep in mind, to eat food and drink, you do need to be wearing. You do not have a helmet on. So now is the time to break out all your fancy clothes and wear clothes instead of a flight suit. So we just quick buy that watermelon slice, and then if we go into Inventory I, local Bevic Convention Center, so now that's interesting. Huh. Regardless, we'll go right here. There we go. The watermelon popped in my hand. So we ate the watermelon, replenished a bit of our food, and can now go ahead and also see about getting some drink. There we go. Got one right here. And there we go. Now we're topped off. And once you're topped off, all those displays will eventually go away. And then you can put it in the trash bin. Keep Convention Center clean. And the last thing I want to note for tips for going around the IAE and the like, well, IAE and Invictus, is the maps right here point out where everything is. There is a lower level that they have a map for. The lower level usually has some of the smaller vehicles if the manufacturer has a lot of vehicles. It also has down here some holo viewer displays. So that'll be through that set of stairs going down that way. And you'll be able to see some ships that are in concept down there. Other than that, you can look at the map, keep an eye on where things are. That way you don't miss anything that you don't want anyone to see. And with that, this is going to be Laco S wrapping up this video for Invictus launch week. There really isn't a whole lot more to go over for Invictus, really. It's relatively straightforward, but there's definitely some tips like that that I gave you that will definitely make your trip here all the more worthwhile. And definitely while you're on the show floor, try out all the ships, have fun, experiment, and be careful with your money. You do not need to spend any more than the starter package to actually play the game. And if any of these larger ships tempt you, do keep in mind that there are plenty of people who already own those larger ships that need crew. So keep that in mind. And with that, this is Lark OS, signing out from Invictus Launch Week 2954.